is it? What time is it? What time is it?
Welcome to Talking About Sports, the Carolina's #1 podcast. We're #1 because you make us #1. We're here with an all-star panel. As always, our guest panelist, Mike Freer from ESPN, 20-year researcher, a good friend of Reggie Walker's. We won't hold that against you, Mike.
World B.
Reggie Walker down on the corner. Not always down on the corner, but he's down on this corner from ESPN Penn State. And the coach, David Davis, here. Always good to have the coach involved here. Great World Series last night. It was just one of the best World Series I remember. Mike, bring you in. I really like the Astros. I've worked in Houston. I'm glad that to see the city really rallied around the Astros. Long time coming. A great victory for not just the Astros, but the city of Houston.
Absolutely. What a story they were. Back in 2011 to 2013, this is a franchise that lost 100 games each year. In 2013, it was 111 losses. And now they're the world champs. And it was an amazing World Series. And the great thing about Astros and their fan base, if they can keep those players together, they are really built for the long haul because they got a number of players under the age of 30.
Well, ownership has money, and they do have but they drafted well. With those losses came high draft picks. There's hope for the Cincinnati Reds maybe. But, Coach, you once were a Houston Oilers wide receiver, and you know the sports landscape in Houston. Coach, you got to really like it for the city of Houston.
That's a tough question because I grew up a Dodger fan. I bleed Dodger blue.
Hey, did you like seeing Don Newcomb out there throwing the first
as a matter
I really
of fact,
like that. 91 years old.
Ironically, I took a sabbatical for a year and just moved to L.A. and got to see about 140 Dodger games at home and on the road. And I do have a Don Newcomb jersey that I wore the opening night of the World Series. But I think, a lot of people want to stress the things that the Dodgers didn't do right. But, in all actuality, I like to concentrate on the things. Houston's a great baseball team in all aspects.
Great organization.
I think mentally, physically they were a great team. But I think mentally, as far as getting the job done, they were a little bit more superior than the Dodgers in that way. I don't think the Dodgers were mentally there. And, we talk about the coaching issue. If I personally think if Roberts would have started Kershaw to give us 4 or 5 innings in the beginning, maybe that 2-run lead wouldn't have poured the gas on the fire as far as getting Houston kick-started. But whatever the case is, congratulations to the Astros. I think it was a great World Series, and anytime you can say Game 7 in any sports, it's to the fans' advantage.
Yeah, and well, first of all, Coach, I'm not going to be sympathetic to that team that plays at Chavez Ravine. I'm a Giants fan. I'm still going to need y'all to, if y'all want to talk trash with us, at least this millennium, I'm going to need y'all to get at least 1 championship because we got 3 in a decade. So I'm going to leave that right there.
Okay.
As it relates to the World Series itself, I want to speak to a couple of specific instances. Game 6, Springer in the outfield. He tries to make a play. In my opinion, you accept that that's a base hit there. Tries to make a diving play, allows for a run-scoring triple. And at the time, many would think maybe he cost his team. And actually, that was Game 5. It was Sunday night. And what I like about what he did was he came back the next inning. He got a fastball that was a pitch to hit, and he absolutely destroyed it. And I think what that told his team was, we can continue to fight back. And if you think about the entire World Series, there was that on both sides. And you had to know, and we know this, right, as sports people, the law of averages of sport, eventually somebody's going to get down and they're not going to be able to bounce back. So I had a feeling going into Game 7. I didn't know who it would be. I kind of thought it was going to be the Dodgers, to be honest. That whoever found a way to get up early was not going to relinquish a lead because the gas was going to finally run out and not be able to stoke that flame anymore for somebody. Again, I thought it would probably be the Dodgers playing at home. I didn't have an issue with Yu Darvish starting Game 7. He's a guy that they've trusted all year for the most part. I didn't have a big issue with that. But I do think, and McCullers, people forget, McCullers struggled the first 3 innings as well.
Sure did.
He just found a way to get out of jams.
Yep.
Darvish didn't. and that was the difference in the ball.
Well, sometimes in baseball and basketball, sometimes you have to throw the stats from the regular season out the window.
Absolutely.
So when I'm looking at Darvish's performance in Game 2, I didn't see that guy who I seen previously during the regular season.
Right.
So if it's Game 7, all my cards are on the table, all my marbles out of my pocket. I'm going with my ace in the hole.
I agree.
And it's Game 7. He can rest tomorrow. He can lay in bed all day today, Kershaw, if he'd have started the game and pitched 4 to 5 good innings.
And I also think
before the game, Kershaw said they asked him how many innings could he go. He said, I can go 27.
Exactly.
So if he can go 4 innings in relief, why can't he start the game is what I was questioning. And Reggie, to your point about Springer, baseball is maybe more than any other sport a sport of redeeming features. You have the ability to come back. Was there anybody in this series that came back from being down more than George Springer? 4 strikeouts in the first game.
Agreed.
All we can say, Reg and Mike and Coach, is congratulations to the champion. Glad that Northwest Cabarrus' own Corey Seager got there. He's
absolutely
definitely want to think young guy, young star that the Dodgers can't build.
And Ardrey star Alex Wood.
There you go.
From Ardrey
thanks a lot, Coach. We've got Carolina Panthers to talk about. Big game coming up, divisional game, a big trade. There's even some NASCAR chaos we might get to. All that and more on Talking About Sports from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill.
We're talking about sports on
We're talking about sports at ADS. I don't gotta say that.
We're talking about
sports in. Oh God, I forgot.
ADSN.
What is it?
ADSN.
ADSN. Okay.
Yeah. We're talking about sports.
Talking about sports.
We're talking about sports.
Talking sports.
Talking about sports. We're talking about sports on ADSN.
Talking about sports on ADSN.
Welcome back to Talking About Sports from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill with Mike Freer, the coach, Coach David Davis, and Reggie Walker. And before we get into Carolina Panthers and
Kev, where the food at, man?
I know that he has been negligent since you've been gone. Me and William Wilson had to work an angle last week to get it done, but we did. ESPN talking about South Carolina Gamecock women's basketball a week after we did, mind you. So let's get the record straight. Carolina Panthers traded Kelvin Benjamin to Panthers North, also known as the Buffalo Bills. They pick up a 3rd and a 7th round pick in the next draft. So no help on the field this year unless you want to count Brenton Burson as help, Reggie Walker. I think this is subtraction by subtraction.
Well, here's what I'll say. And the timing of the trade was weird enough for me. But I'll say it this way. Whether they think Curtis Samuel and his speed stretching the field is going to help, whether they think it's going to be Kalen Clay being able to help, Burson, you just mentioned being re-signed. The only question I ask is this. When you look at the totality of this trade, the guys that are still there that are probably going to, I guess, start in place of Kelvin, weren't they backups for a reason? I've always said that in sport, certain players, you're a backup for a reason. Absolutely. And so that means you generally have a deficiency somewhere in your game.
Well, Lou Gehrig was a backup one time, and he did
That's
pretty
fair.
well.
And he became. And I'm not saying that Kalen Clay or Curtis Samuel can't become great players.
Training camp. You've been high on Clay and Funchess.
Yes, I have.
Since training camp, especially Clay with his speed issues.
Correct.
I've been high on Shepard. I think these guys are underutilized. Now now this is your chance, pal.
And my thing, while that may all be true again, and I'm not the general manager, and I'm not a general manager,
I don't
so I'm
think
not
the
going to play
current
one
one's
on
going to
TV.
be very long anyway.
But from a general manager standpoint and a coaching standpoint, you evaluated these guys to the level of being backups before the season. What have we seen during the regular season that says they shouldn't be backups anymore?
Here's the thing I questioned about the trade when it happened, and I'm just wondering. This is a team. The Panthers are in contention. 5-3. They're in contention
Agreed.
in the NFC.
So it's Buffalo.
And Buffalo's in the AFC. How does this trade make the Panthers better?
Coach David Davis, a wide receiver for the Houston Oilers. You see Kelvin Benjamin since he's been here. Mm-hmm. You I guess watch receivers closely as you do a lot of other positions. What did you see in Benjamin that made you think that, from what you've read, Why would Carolina trade him? And what do you see in the Funchess, Clay, Shepard, Samuel, that type of group that maybe can pick up the slack and maybe make the receiving core better?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with his decline in productivity, Benjamin's, over the past 3 years, after getting hurt.
An $8 million raise next year on a fifth-year
yeah,
player
so
option?
that had to come into play. And also, I think from a general manager standpoint, they looked at this guy this year coming into training camp at 280 pounds. I was always told you come into training camp.
I wouldn't mind coming into camp 280.
Yeah, you come into training camp to get ready for the year.
Yeah.
And you come in shape, and that's what he did not do. And they think this is going to be an ongoing problem in regards to that. But my thing is this: I think Kelvin Benjamin, with his big body, someone said he ran a slow combine 40, so the Panthers could draft him. So I don't know what his rationale thinking was then, but I just feel now. We're going to have to rely. The Panthers are going to have to rely on Funchess a lot more, be a premier receiver, a highlighted receiver, and then again, Ed Dixon has to step up again.
Yeah.
Cam has to. He threw a lot of downfield passes last week when it could have been checkoffs to that tight end, and also getting the ball to McCaffrey. But I don't have a problem with them trading Benjamin at this point. Because you mentioned they're a playoff team at 5-3, but they're not a Super Bowl contender. At right now,
Are they any more a contender now after this trade?
Well, I tell you what, Cam Newton's best year as a quarterback was without Kelvin Benjamin, and so I don't know
how much. They also had a running game that was best in the league. And
you're exactly
right. They were
right.
nowhere close to that now.
And you're leading into my next point. I think these picks for next year could be probably, as we talked about,
They need to be
offensive line.
Absolutely.
They need to up the offensive line, upgrade the offensive line, and to get another back, a premier back. I think Jonathan Stewart, bless his heart, great player, great guy, but I think
Father Time's caught and passed him.
Yeah, pretty much. So I think right now, I think they're going to concede with just making the playoffs, but I think next year with those two picks can make them a real Super Bowl contender.
Stewart and McCaffrey combined rushing the ball are averaging less than 3 yards a carry.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
And as a team, at the end of it, if it wasn't for Cam, they wouldn't be averaging 3 yards a carry at all. So they're near the bottom in the league in that category.
But good news, though, Reggie, Greg Olson back at least working out and practicing, so there's light at the end of the tunnel.
There is light at the end of the tunnel. To be honest, I still don't, in my opinion, I don't think we're going to see Olson until probably the Jets game on November 26th. It's one thing to come off an injury. There's two things he's going to have to deal with over the next couple of weeks. The first thing is understanding that the foot is healthy, just from a structural standpoint. Then the second piece of it is mentally trusting that everything is okay and you can make all the movements that you need to make. And so that's why I think we're probably not going to see him until the Jets game. And when you really look at what's coming up for them, 2 more games, you got Atlanta coming this weekend, then you got Miami coming, 2 decent football teams. Miami not as much, obviously Atlanta division opponent as well. This team has to find a way, in my opinion. They have to be at least 6-4 going into that Jets game, or there's a problem coming along the way, because the back end of the schedule featuring a pretty good Minnesota team at New Orleans, Green Bay, and Atlanta again, not to mention Tampa Bay. That's a tough sled on the back end. They got to find a way to get to 6 games before Thanksgiving.
And we'll get into that Falcons game coming up next with more Talking About Sports from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill. Welcome back to Talking About Sports from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill. Kevin Casey, Mike Freer, the coach, Coach David Davis, Reggie Walker, and Coach. Falcons come into town, started off hot, kind of went down, won again recently. They're an up and down ball club, a Super Bowl, a conference champion last year, much like Carolina the year before. A lot of weaponry, especially on offense. What do you see between Carolina and the Falcons this weekend?
I think it's going to be, from the Panthers standpoint, getting pressure on Ryan.
Yeah.
Seeing that he's only been sacked 12 times so far, whereas Cam's been sacked 22 times, I think that's going to be very, very important to get pressure on Ryan. Not only that, Julio.
Yeah.
No big plays.
Julio!
Not have big plays downfield. Atlanta does a great job of balancing the pass and run, but it's their big plays in games that lets them win games. And Panthers want to make it ugly. you want to have an ugly game, keep it low scoring against the Falcons because they do have that firepower to put up 40 points a game.
You just made a great point. If you actually look at what the Falcons are doing this year versus what the Falcons did last year in their Super Bowl run, it's almost identical in terms of run to pass ratio for their offense. So they're just as balanced last year. Just as balanced this year as they were last year. So when you watch this football team, the Panthers are going to have to do a good job of staying aware of what's going on defensively and what Atlanta's trying to do to them and keep, to your point, those big plays to a minimum. And I think on the flip side of the field, listen, against a team like this, the Panthers' weakness, we just talked about, is running the football. They're going to have to find a way to run the football to keep it away from that offense, because one thing about this defense, as good as the Panthers' defense is playing, 60, 70, 80 snaps against this Atlanta offense is not where they want to be, because that offense is, to your point, explosive.
This Panthers offense, or excuse me, this Falcons offense isn't nearly the same as you mentioned what it was last year. They're way under their numbers all across the board, or under from what they were last year. The last 4 games, the Jets game where they had 25 is the most they've had in the last 4 games. You keep waiting for this Falcons team to be the same as it was last year, and it's just not happening yet. So this is a wonderful opportunity for the Panthers to really come away with a win against a team that isn't the same as they were in the Super Bowl.
And that's a great point, but I think a lot of it has to do, the Panthers' defense isn't the same as last year. I think, and I have to go back and look, the Falcons probably had the ball more last year when it comes to possessions, plays, and time offense on the field. But I think with what they do, man, they got 2 really, to me, prime-time receivers in Jones and Sanu who can really get the job
running game
done.
is pretty strong, too.
And 2 backs that can go.
I think
Freeman.
Freeman is
Devontae Freeman, and
he's not 100%,
Howard.
but Tevin Coleman looks. He is very strong, and he actually had a better game last year here at Carolina. So I really think that I think the key, Coach, is the running game for Atlanta and keeping their offense on the field.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, and I think their defense has to do a better job of getting a lot more 3 and out, so Ryan and that offense can be showcased. But I don't think that's been the case. I think their defense has really slipped a little bit when it comes to comparing them to last year, and that's caused the offensive production to be down because they're not on the field as much.
Yeah, I agree. And the one thing we've seen that's been inconsistent with the Panthers this season is their ability to maintain drives and sustain possessions. And if they find themselves in a situation where, especially from an offensive line standpoint, they're inconsistent up front and they can't sustain drives, and you continue to give the ball back like we mentioned to this Falcons offense, to your point, Mike, yes, they're not as explosive as they were last year. I just mean the ratio is similar.
Right. Absolutely.
But this is not where you want them to get well, because they get opportunities. So if you're the Panthers, you got to find a way to maintain possessions and have some long drives that result in touchdowns, not field goals.
And not only an NFL game, but a divisional game.
That's absolutely correct.
Which puts a little bit more pressure on both teams to do well and try to get the win.
This is the first of 2.
Exactly.
And you get the Saints again. So this is, if the Panthers aren't going to do anything, push them towards the division and the playoffs, this is a game they really want.
Totally agree.
Ezekiel Elliott's suspension upheld. Looks like, for me, it came 1 week too late. I think it's a travesty and a miscarriage of justice. But no matter what, he's going to be down for 6 weeks. So we'll see how that goes. I think the Cowboys they beat a poorly coached team last week and got lucky due to the elements and the fact that they had a criminal in the backfield, but that's another story. But I think that the Cowboys won't really do too much the rest of the way. But what are the longer-term implications of this? And I think they touch, Mike. I think they touch the commissioner's office from what we're hearing about Jerry Jones. Maybe not so happy. We know Papa John's is not happy with Roger Goodell, but it also seems like a guy whose motto is money talks and BS walks, and that's Jerry Jones. A lot of people suddenly dissatisfied with Roger Goodell.
It's a weird situation right now. I'm sure he's got a league he never thought he was going to have a few years ago, or certainly not when he came into this. They're teetering. This league is teetering. I don't buy the whole Papa John's blaming the NFL for their
stop it.
Not at all.
Improve
publicity
your pizza,
stunt.
maybe you'll get better sales.
Totally agree.
Throw it in the NFL's face is silly. But it's just one hit after another. It's another knock against the league. And after a while, how many do you take before you really start seeing an impact?
Well, let me say this. And
you like
and
the
this
pepperoncini in your Papa John's pizza there, Reggie?
Stop it.
Let me say this. You want more.
Let me say this about the whole thing with the league and the commissioner. This is a commissioner in Roger Goodell that came in, and I said at the time, you don't have to touch it. Just leave the product alone. It's doing what it needs to do. It'll percolate on its own. He came in as a fire and brimstone guy, making unilateral decisions, putting his stamp on everything, and now all of a sudden with this particular issue that's going on right now all of a sudden he wants to have meetings and talk to everybody and figure out what to do. So that's a frustration for a lot of people, for a guy that seemingly always had the answers, whether people liked him or not, right, wrong, or indifferent, right? At least he made them. And now he's afraid to make a decision because he's staring at the money on one side and the players on the other side. He can't figure out which one will hurt him more. But that's the problem, Roger. You made, at one point, it was reported one year, you made $44 million. You better be good at starting to make some decisions again and be able to stand on your own 2 feet and find your backbone again, because right now, this is a guy that showed up slamming the hammer down like judge, jury, and executioner. Now all of a sudden the backbone is completely missing.
He looks like
he's
Judge
become
Judy
a reptile.
slamming the hammer down, and he better hope he saved his money and talked to my man Richard Jurchek, the $1 Million Man, because it looks like his days are not known for long. And Coach, I'll just say real quick before we go to a break. The NFL has proven, 1987, the players strike. Players can come and go. They will lock you out, and they'll find other guys. And they've done it in the past. I didn't agree with it. I covered the strike my first 2 years covering NFL football. The NFL has proven they will bring in other players. If the current group of players doesn't like it, they can go form their own league.
I totally agree. And Roger Goodell, he made this bid. He has to lay in it. Man, when it comes to a majority of these issues, especially with Ezekiel Elliott, if the criminal justice didn't find anything wrong, and then his own NFL investigator who interviewed the young lady and
said there was nothing wrong.
Said there was nothing wrong, but he wants to impose a 6-game suspension, then he has to eat that cake. And if he loses sponsors, it's on his watch. It's his call. I just think he made a bad decision in this regard when it comes to Ezekiel Elliott.
Real quick, I still contend Zeke should have went in there, and the league could have done this. They got the video of him pulling the young lady's shirt down. They could have hit him with 2 games for that, and there would have been nothing to argue about, nothing to appeal, nothing to talk about, and this whole issue would be over.
That's the
But
Cowboy
instead,
way,
they're
right?
chasing everything else.
I'll say that. That's William Wilson's Dallas Cowboys in action for you. We've got college football to talk about. Plus, we hope to get to some NASCAR controversy. That's coming up right here at the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill on Talking About Sports. Welcome back to Talking About Sports from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill. College football to talk about now with Mike Freer, Reggie Walker, and the coach David Davis. Did Penn State and Nittany Lions lose this weekend? Reggie, was that my imagination?
Nope, they lost. They lost.
Okay.
Blew an 18-point lead. It happens.
Okay, that was ridiculous. I thought they had that in the bag. I'm sure many of their fans did. I want to make a proposition bet. You know our good friend James King from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill, famous for his beer cheese, big Wisconsin Badger fan. He wanted Penn State to be undefeated. He wanted Wisconsin to be undefeated, to play for the Big Ten championship. I think there should be some kind of a wager between you and James, whereas if maybe the next week after, if Penn State loses, you got to wear Wisconsin gear, and maybe if Penn State wins, maybe James has to work the Big Ten championship game here at the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill in Penn State gear.
Well, the issue with that is if the teams aren't playing each other, I don't think the bet works.
Well, I'm just saying,
and if we don't get to the Big Ten championship game, which right now we're not in line to do, it doesn't work.
All right. Well,
but if we were to actually play them, I would do something like that.
Yeah, be careful what you wish for, too. Because I made a similar bet years ago. I'm a Mountaineer, and I made a bet with somebody who was a Virginia Tech fan.
You're what?
I'm a Mountaineer.
You admit that publicly?
Absolutely.
Just among family?
No, I'm a proud Mountaineer.
Family and love interest are the same thing?
Some of the best years of my life.
Yeah, okay.
There you go.
All right, college football rankings released. Georgia, surprisingly, number 1 to some people, followed by Alabama. I'm not really, even though I'm a big Notre Dame fan, I'm not really on board with Notre Dame 3 and Clemson 4. They're one-loss teams ahead of Wisconsin, number 9, and Miami undefeated who I've seen in person. Kevin Tolbert and I were at the Tar Heel Miami game last week. Miami number 10. Where do you fall on the rankings, and where and Clemson also has a big tilt at NC State this weekend, Mike?
I don't have a problem where they are right now. I think they're right where they should be. The first rankings really don't mean anything, because the first 3 years we've had this going, the first rankings, 2 of the teams don't even make the playoffs. So expect 2 of these teams to be out by the time we get to the final rankings. Georgia, I think if you look at what they've done this year, who they played, is deserving number 1. Alabama, their schedule is, they get away with not having to talk about their schedule. They haven't really played anybody to this point. Florida State team at the beginning of the year, which is looking worse and worse as the season goes on, but they keep crushing everybody. So they're definitely a number 2 team. I think anybody would say they're one of the 2 best teams in the country. And then Notre Dame only lost by 1 to Georgia. And they've rolled through everybody. They looked great last week against NC State after they fell behind early. And I think Clemson's still one of the 4 best teams in the country. I don't have a problem.
They're the defending champs. Coach Davis, how do you look at it?
Well, I think that the SEC championship game, maybe Georgia versus Alabama, one of those teams will not be playing, I don't think, in the Final Four.
I think they both could.
They could, but then again, I think the other teams like Clemson and Notre Dame keep winning, and then you got your Oklahomas of the world who could go undefeated and win the Big 12 championship. I think that will weigh a lot.
Do you think the winner of, I don't think TCU, they were exposed last week, but I'm thinking the Oklahoma State winner. You think
no?
Do you like that?
It's too early.
If Oklahoma State wins, I don't think that puts them as an elite team in order to be in the top 4 in the nation. But I'm holding my breath to see how Miami does finish the year.
Miami plays Virginia Tech Saturday night, and Miami plays Notre Dame, so it's all in front of Miami.
Yeah, and I will tell you this: don't overlook the Clemson-NC State game this week. It was a missed field goal.
I'd like to overlook it.
A game that led to Clemson winning the national championship last year in the NC State game. And the Textile Bowl is always a good game.
Well, Reggie always puts it correctly for NC State. I call it the know your role scenario. Reggie, NC State, vastly overrated, and I think is a fraud in college football.
I wouldn't call him a fraud. I think this is probably the most talented team that Coach Doran has had. But at the same time, what does that say in terms of the schedule you have to play? And to get to the rankings premise, these rankings mean nothing to me. I think if you just look at this Saturday alone, there's a lot of people playing each other. So we're going to see some shuffles. The bottom line is just win your games down the stretch and give yourself a shot. I personally don't like the way this whole thing is done. I've never liked committees. To me, as a coach and as a player, I want a benchmark
in there
to get to that at least gives me consideration. When you listen to the committee come out and justify this, that, and they're using this criteria for this team and that criteria for that. To me, it makes no sense. So I definitely don't care about the first set of rankings. Well, the last set is the one that matters. We'll figure it out.
What if Ohio State knocks off Michigan and all of a sudden Penn State's in the championship game and they beat Wisconsin, and they could get right back in there under one scenario that some people are floating?
Well, I had an issue last year, and let me say this. I did not think, and anybody that knows me has heard me say this, Mike Freer, you heard me talk about this in the office. I didn't think Penn State was one of the best 4 teams last year, but I did have an issue with the fact that a team that did not even win their division in Ohio State played for a national championship. To me, you need to be a champion of something to play for the ultimate championship.
Reggie,
that's just my opinion.
Totally agree.
And also, how about this? Reggie has pointed out how pathetic the Louisville defense is. Wake Forest destroyed them 42-32. I really like Lamar Jackson. He's the reigning Heisman Trophy winner. I think he's done nothing to tarnish his I still think he's good enough to win it again, but I think his team is bringing him down.
His offense, that team is averaging in conference play, they're averaging 33 points a game, which means you should win games. But when your defense is giving up 39 points a game, I'm sorry, yes, now he has 4 losses. Whatever people are going to say the loss. I can't take Lamar Jackson out of my Heisman top 5.
You can't.
Really the top 3. Looking at what he did. His that defense, I'm going to tell you right now, as the four of us sit here and our executive producer, Kevin Tolbert, is behind the camera, I think we can score a touchdown on Louisville's defense with no offensive line. That's how bad that defense is. And it's absolute. Check my Twitter feed at rwalk13. Every Saturday when Louisville plays, I eviscerate that Louisville defense because they absolutely stink, and there's no excuse for it.
Yeah, I think when it comes to the Heisman and Lamar Jackson, he's a great player, but how many times you can count on a couple of fingers how many times the Heisman Trophy winner has had a
losing
season.
Paul Hornung.
Exactly.
And Tim Tebow won it with 3. That's about it.
That's not a losing season, though.
No, it's not.
Yeah. But my thing is to say part of that Heisman is putting up great stats but winning football games also. Although it's not his fault if the defense is terrible.
And they gave up 45
like
to BC.
He's doing his job, but I think there
BC looks good now.
Some guys on the peripheral of the Heisman Trophy race that are having great years.
Absolutely.
That deserve a little bit more attention because they're winning games also.
I agree. That's
By
fair.
the way, you mentioned NC State and Clemson. If NC State were to actually win this game, what a mess it would create for the college football playoff ranking.
Well,
you're looking at the ACC champion.
Goalposts
Miami.
would come down, I can tell you that.
He represented playing for a
Very
national
well-
championship.
I can say there's only one conference that's, in my opinion, the Pac-12 is done.
Absolutely.
They're not making the college football playoff short of everybody losing 3 games. That conference is done. That's the only one that's done. If Oklahoma is able to win out, they got a shot. TCU, I don't think they can do enough. And the biggest problem to me right now, personally, based on the way that league is set up, Bedlam is too early.
Oh, yeah.
Bedlam being this
It should be
weekend,
Thanksgiving weekend.
and I think it's a calculated error
It is.
by the Big 12.
Big.
They're going to screw that conference up by having Bedlam this early in the season.
Should be the last game of the season.
Absolutely.
Pistol Pete is going to get his revenge this year. Watch it. We got plenty more to talk about. Kevin Tolbert and I were at North Carolina, Miami this weekend. We got tailgate features. We talked to some players, and we'll have that and much, much more on Talking About Sports from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill.
We're talking about sports on
We're talking about sports at ADS. I don't know how to say that.
We're talking about
We're talking about sports in, oh God, I forgot.
ADSN.
What is it?
ADSN.
ADSN, okay.
We're talking about sports.
Talking about sports.
We're talking about sports.
Talking sports.
Talking about sports. We're talking about sports on ADSN.
Talking about sports on ADSN.
They got us a couple of times on some good looks that they had for the play we had called, and that's going to happen. Obviously I can't turn the ball over because if we don't turn the ball over, we probably win that game.
You just got to keep. I mean, as a defense, you're never gonna lay down, and as a defense, if your team's not doing well, it kind of reflects on you sometimes because if they don't score, you don't lose, and that's kind of how we're trying to be as a defense. I mean.
I've said this before, I feel like if you didn't look at our record and you just watched us practice and you watched us in the game, you wouldn't be able to tell that we have a losing record because, the leadership that we have on this team, I couldn't be more proud to be on the team regardless of the record. So, I'm just happy to be here, and we're going to keep on fighting.
You don't win when you turn the ball over 4 times. You don't give yourself a chance when you turn the ball over 4 times. Doesn't matter who you play. And that's something that we've had a lot of problems with. And if you do that, you make it really tough. And that's what's amazing is we turned it over 3 times and we're still in that game and have a chance to win it. And then we turn it over a 4th. And that was pretty much the DAC.
Guys, we just heard from Coach Fedor and select players from North Carolina. I really think that North Carolina played very well against a very good ball club in Miami. Just too many injuries. I just don't know if North Carolina is really going to rebound. Reggie talked about how complicated their scheme was defensively. I think they've tried to address that. I think they've made improvements. It's a lost season for them right now. Mike, for North Carolina, I think it's basically see who you got and give some valuable playing time to some of the younger guys.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's a bit of a throwaway season, unfortunately, for fans of North Carolina. They got to be careful, too. Not only is it a throwaway season, they have to win 2 of their last 3 games just to avoid 10-loss season. And I don't think anybody at the beginning of the year ever saw that coming. You're right, the injuries have been dramatic on their 3rd-string quarterback. Now it's just...
He looked good, though. Nick Elliott looked good.
They made a really good effort against Miami team that somehow manages to let opponents stay in the game this year. And so it's looking to next year. That's just how it is.
Yeah, I think when you look at this North Carolina team, if you look at them 4 weeks ago and then you look at them this past week against Miami, there are some things you can see in terms of improvement.
Absolutely.
And when you're a young team, in a lot of spaces they're young and struggling, you have to find some positives as a coaching staff to build on. You have to figure out what guys can do well and try to use those things to your advantage. And I think the coaching staff, I'm sure they're frustrated. But to your point, they've got to start turning this thing over and say, you know what? This is our fall practice before our spring practice before next season. And that's how they have to start to look at it.
Yeah, and I think with Miami, they are the ultimate this year. They're that team who plays to the level of their competition, too. If you look at the games, they had the big games are against big teams.
Yeah.
And then when they get, not to knock them, but when they get a team like Carolina, they play to that level, I think. And I think Coach Rick, if he wants to be involved with this national championship talk, and he's building a great program, having been alum there, I think he's doing a great job. But then again, he has to teach his team to every game is a Florida State game.
Yeah, I think part of that is I think this team is a year away, to be honest. I think they're a little bit ahead of schedule. And I think there's still some youth in certain spots that speaks to this lack of consistency that we talk about. Rozier is playing pretty good football. Remember, this is a kid that Mark Rick said initially, if you don't do some things better, you will never play for me.
Absolutely.
And this kid is starting to do, obviously, by being the starter, he's doing some things better, but that doesn't mean he's a fixed product yet. That doesn't mean he's a complete project that's really fully worked itself out. So I think when you look at this ball club, you see those things and you see the inconsistencies because of those type of scenarios with this football team. But I agree, they better find some consistency if they really want to make a push this year, because down the stretch, it doesn't get much easier. They've still got to play a Notre Dame football team. So their schedule doesn't get any easier. And I'm going to tell you right now, at the end of the day, when November gets here, I don't care who you're playing. Everybody's desperate to find wins. You better be careful because you can get beat.
And the problem for Miami is, in terms of the college football playoff, they're undefeated. Like you said, they've had too many close games. Their schedule to this point hasn't been great. So if you come up and you suffer a loss in November against a quality team, that's not going to work out for them because they don't have a win to look on their resume to boast. So it's a really tough spot for Miami as far as making the college football playoff. But hey, if they're undefeated at the end and they're the ACC champs, they're going.
One thing that nobody can, one thing that nobody can argue with is if you hire the tailgate guys, Brendan Riley, their general manager, like Kevin Tolbert found out this weekend, you can have a great time at all-inclusive tailgate. All you got to do is write the big check. You guys got plenty of money. Just write the big check to Brendan Riley and the tailgate guys. Let's see what KT found out over the weekend.
On a game day, I'm waking up 5 a.m. I'm getting to site 6 a.m., making sure that we're ready to roll 5 hours prior to kickoff. How you doing this morning? Tie and tie. If you guys can get everything ready for the bell hopping, wagons and all that good stuff, I'd appreciate it, guys. The other thing you'll need to do is put those no smoking signs on each of the tents. The tents come down a lot faster than they go up.
Yeah.
So, I'm Brendan Riley, and I'm the general manager for the Atlantic region with Tailgate Guys. We're gonna get one behind this table, then one right here, and then one over in here, kind of like a U around this bench almost. I'll be out here making sure our TVs are running. I'm making sure that all of our part-time staff and bellhops are in place so that when our guests arrive, it's a smooth transition from their cars to their tents and then back to their cars when the game's over. So we're getting the last of the equipment up here for you. And then this is everything else is up and running. Running all over the place. I'll probably put a good couple of miles on these shoes today. But it always something new, and I love it a lot. Next one's gonna go right here. Third one's gonna go right here. I should wear a Fitbit so I can see how much I can walk throughout the day. I'm sure that number gets up there.
Brendan's one of the hardest workers in the company and in any company. And he's here. He hasn't stopped all day, and he's been here. He's been other side of campus. You know, I think you've seen him. He hasn't stopped, and if you talk to any guest here, they'll tell you the same thing. He's just a pleasure to work with and enjoy each Saturday.
Yeah, so a lot of our days just getting the site up and running for all of our guests, so that when they show up at 8 o'clock, nothing needs to be done for them. We just kind of roll out the red carpet, take all their stuff out of their vehicle, and drop it off, and they have a great time. Put the tortillas up here. Santa. We got Santa coming.
Like legitimate, like. Yo, we really got Santa in the building.
Let me know if you guys need anything, but you guys are all ready to roll. So just come yell at us if you need something.
Great baseball tailgate.
That's what I'm talking about. We like to make it as customizable as we can. So anyone can get a package starting at a basic level, just some tents, tables, chairs. And then you can start sort of building it up, making it more premium as we go. Things that we provide that give that a little bit more of a premium feel. TVs, they'll be hooked up to a dish satellite so you can watch any game that you want. We have coolers with ice, tent fans for the particularly hot days. We'll have cocktail tables, things that spruce it up a little bit and give it more of a higher end tailgate feel. So we try to give, an option or have an option for everybody, any one of our guests to make sure that they're all, well taken care of. We're really fortunate here. There's a lot of great locations on campus, for us to really provide a great level of service. So we have our main site at the Keenan Amphitheater, which is just northwest of the stadium, a 15-second walk and you're inside one of the gates. We also do some of our work at the bell tower in the quads right there underneath the bell tower. This particular weekend, we're also at Polk Place for Monogram Day with the Rams Club. And then we have a visiting team tailgate at Chapman Hall right above the Venable lot. So we're spread across campus this weekend, and that's the best part because you get to impact the most people and have a great time on game day. It took me a while to get used to waking up at 5 in the morning so that I could be here at 6 a.m. But once the guests get here and sort of the scene livens up and you start to create that atmosphere on game day, it carries you through the rest of the day.
Yo, baby, yo, routine's on.
Go Heels! Woo! Let's go Heels! When I first saw it online, I didn't really know what was going to happen and everything. I was talking with Brendan, he walked us through the process, and it's been amazing. I'm planning on doing it for many years to come.
The easiest part has been how easy it is for us, because literally I pull up like 10 feet away and I drop off all my tailgating stuff, and it's been a fantastic experience all year long.
You drop everything off, we get to see our kids walk in. I mean, you couldn't ask for anything better.
I think we provide a great service and obviously a great atmosphere. I mean, I can't beat today. I mean, the weather, just the feeling, the fans. I think everybody's having a great time. And
sorry we didn't get the win, but I had a great time out there today. It was a wonderful day tailgating with everybody. And if you haven't swung by our site and checked us out, feel free to see us, and we'll be here next season. So we look forward to seeing you.
Now that's a great feature on tailgating. They had great food. And and speaking of great food, here we go.
You can put them nachos right there.
Yeah, there's Reggie's back.
I do that work. That's my
steak
work.
Nachos. I got my pretzel with the Wisconsin beer cheese, thanks to James King, a Wisconsin Badger fan. On Wisconsin, I'll give him an on Wisconsin for the beer cheese.
Right there.
Reg. Coach, looking at the ACC standings, this weekend could be a semifinals heading into the ACC championship game. NC State and Clemson in the Atlantic Division. Both are undefeated in the Atlantic Division, and you got Miami and Virginia Tech. Miami 4-0 and Virginia Tech 4-1. first tiebreaker is head-to-head. What do you like this weekend with NC State and Clemson and Miami and Virginia Tech?
Well, you're exactly right. Barring some big, huge upsets after this weekend,
Notre Dame.
Whoever wins these two games, the NC State Clemson game, Virginia Tech Miami game, will probably play in the ACC championship game, and the winner of that game will have the best shot to represent the ACC in the Final Four. But I'm a Wolfpacker at heart.
I know you started there
from Red and White State,
from Rutherford County, right?
That's right, Spindale to be exact.
All right.
I'm an NC State guy, and I think playing in Raleigh make a big difference. Last year, like
the house that Roman Gabriel built.
Yeah, and I actually caught a touchdown against Clemson when we played them in the Textile Bowl. My
baller!
But my thing is this. In this game, I truly think NC State's going to remember what happened last year with the missed field goal and hopefully not let it come down to that again, and NC State will win. I think Miami is just too big and too strong for Virginia Tech. To be honest with you, no matter where they're playing.
Are you calling the upset, Coach? Are you going out on a limb right now and saying NC State's going to beat Clemson?
Yes, I got NC State and Miami. And here's the kicker. I'm looking at
they need
2 weeks from now when Florida State and Clemson play. As we talked about, Reggie, that is a huge game no matter how bad a team is. When you pit athlete against athlete, and Florida State, it means a little bit more playing against the Clemson. That's going to be a huge game no matter what happens in the NC State-Clemson game this coming Saturday.
And depending on what Florida State does over the next couple of weeks, that game could have a lot to do with whether or not the Seminoles find a way to be in bowl eligible this year. And as I said, when November hits, teams get really desperate to find wins. I'm not suggesting that there's going to be an upset, but I am suggesting it might be closer than the experts think.
There you go. And, guys, we're going to go to a break right now, but when we come back, this is the state of North Carolina. There's something called basketball. Duke, North Carolina, they're pretty good. They seem to be that way.
It's still football season.
Well, but they seem to be good. We're going to talk some the preseason polls are out. Of course, Duke looks pretty strong, the defending champs of the Tar Heels. We got college basketball coming up next on Talking About Sports from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill. Welcome back to Talking About Sports from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill. We got all of our great stuff. We got wings. Reggie's got his steak nachos. I got my pretzel here with James King's own Wisconsin beer cheese. And I'm on Wisconsin's bandwagon now since James brought back the
No,
cheese
you're just
here.
anti-Penn State right now.
No, I'm not anti-Penn State, Reggie. I mean, I am to a degree. But, my man Easy Smith IV from Concord is a buddy. I've seen that guy in the weight room, and he's pretty solid, just like you are, Reg. And his dad's a legend, Easy Smith, State of North Carolina Athletic Hall of Fame, the great coach of the Concord Spiders. And it hurts me to say that as a Mount Pleasant Tiger, but I give props where they're due. College basketball, the polls are out. Duke, the preseason #1. North Carolina, a defending champion. I like Danny Manning, what he's doing at Wake Forest. And NC State's rebuilding. They had the coach at Wilmington came up there. And
Kevin
Coach
Keats.
Yep. Coach Davis, you're involved with a lot of the AAU programs in college basketball. You have your hand on the pulse there. What do you see ACC basketball-wise?
Well, first things first, the top-selling merchandise shirt in Chapel Hill right now is Wadle basketball season. So having said that,
the players don't get a cut of any of that merchandise sale.
No, they don't.
I'm just
But
mentioning
believe me,
that.
the fans, if they can wear that after getting beat up this year in football, they'll take it.
Yeah.
Any solace is good for a Carolina fan. But I really do think Duke is a premier team. The barometer is going to be on how subtle, how hard Grayson Allen plays and how he keeps his emotions.
What's the over/under on how many guys he trips this year?
He will not trip any, and I'll tell you why.
Okay, I'll go over.
Now he's looking at a paycheck.
Yeah.
He's looking at the NBA. He's NBA
Wasn't he looking at it last
caliber.
year?
No, that's why he stayed. Now he's a senior. He has no other chance. He did it last year as a junior, knowing as a senior, I got another chance.
Well, he can play for the Warriors. They trip guys and they injure guys. Ask my San Antonio Spurs. Ask Kawhi Leonard that.
I'll tell you what.
They didn't trip anybody on the way to winning 73 games.
There's two things.
And winning 2 rings.
When you look at this Duke basketball team, there's 2 things that jump off the page. Their size, they're huge.
Yeah.
This
Coach
is a
K
big
said
basketball
it's
team.
biggest
Can't teach height.
Yeah.
And the second piece of it is Coach K. He knows how to handle different types of basketball teams. He's won championships with youth experience, explosive players, superstar one-and-done type play. He's won it every way you can think of.
Intelligent.
And when you add the component of all that size and experience with Coach K's ability to handle it the right way, it does not shock me that this team is sitting at number one. Look out for Michigan State. Tom Izzo always finds a way.
Great coach.
You know, you mentioned the size that Duke possesses, and I agree that the roster coming in, and Bagley is huge, and I think Duke. The great thing about having all this size, outside the obvious, is I've noticed over the years when Duke teams struggle come tournament time, they're way too reliant on the three.
Absolutely.
They don't. They love to take the three. They just don't always have all the shooters that they. If they can pound it inside and rely a little bit less on the three,
yeah,
I think they're going to be a really, really good team. You look at the numbers over the years when they shoot less from the three-point range, or they're really good shooters, but they've had over the years they've struggled from three-point range, and it's never stopped them from.
All right, let's go down the line and give me a preseason. Who's going to win it all? Reg, go start with you. Who's going to win it all?
I should say Memphis because that's my hometown and that's my team, but I'm going to be realistic.
Go ahead and say
here.
that. Go ahead. I'll
nope,
take
I'm going to be realistic. You know what? I'm going to go out on a limb.
Keith Lee's coming back. Give
me Tom Izzo and Sparty.
All right. That's a good pick. Coach?
It's going to stay in the state. It's going to be in the state of North Carolina. The Dukies will win it.
Coach, go ahead, Mike.
I think it's going to be Duke, and I think they're going to play Arizona. I think Sean Miller finally gets to a Final Four.
I'm not so much on board with that, but I like what Coach Davis is talking about with Duke, because Duke has won national titles after North Carolina's won them, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
I just think the best coach and is Coach K. I like Duke, but if you give me Duke and North Carolina in the field, I'll take Duke and North Carolina, but one or the other, I'll take the field. We want to thank, and then we got a coach before we go. You were doing a little nice little road tripping feature. I haven't even seen it, but I'm sure it's great. Let's go to see what Coach Davis came across this weekend.
Hey sports fans, just wanted to follow up and let you know that we finally ended our AAU Select Tour, basketball tour, teaching fundamentals to kids 6th grade to 12th grade all across the United States. We just finished up in Memphis, Tennessee. Had a great year with my fellow coaches, Coach Devin Seifert, Coach Deshaun Young, Coach Corey Baker. It was amazing. Coach Corey Hemphill. It was amazing to have the guys all travel with us to 17 cities across the United States, from California to Texas to Florida, North Carolina, of course. It's been a great ride. Hope you enjoy the pictures. If you want more information, go to aauselecttour.org, and we'll be on there with all information for next year, and you can look at all our coaches. Again, thank you for all your support.
Well, Coach, you were in Memphis, Reggie's hometown. Did you see any statues erected for Reggie? I had some good meals there. I've been on Beale Street.
Walking in Memphis.
There was one in Rendezvous. Had a napkin.
Oh yeah,
up on the wall.
That was probably me.
I've been there in Corky, so we got.
I get my eat on now.
We're gonna have a quick discussion of the Hornets and maybe even some NASCAR coming back on Talking About Sports from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill. Welcome back to Talking About Sports from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill. Some quick thoughts. The Hornets, they look pretty good. I like Kemba Walker. Frank the Tank got dunked on by Giannis, the Greek Freak, but that happens to a lot of guys.
Who didn't?
And Malik Monk, all the preseason squirrel hunting out in Arkansas is really helping, is paying a lot of dividends for the Hornets. Down the line, real quick, give me a quick take on the Hornets. Starting with you, Mike.
I think they're a playoff team. They're playing really well right now. They have the depth in their second unit that's great, and they're not even fully at full strength yet with Batum and MKG in and out. Once they get everybody healthy, I think there's no way they're not a playoff team in my opinion.
And Coach, your golfing buddy Del Curry probably gave you some inside information. What's going on with the Hornets in your opinion?
Well, he likes them. I like them too. The thing I'm worried about is just
I want to know who wins those golf games between you and Del.
He's a great golfer. I just think that I hope the Hornets don't overuse Kemba, and he's worn out after the All-Star break when it's crunch time down the stretch because he has no help right now. Dwight Howard is playing his role, but when it comes to scoring and carrying a team, we have to hope as a Hornet fan that Monk can withstand his scoring or some scoring to help Kemba out, because it's going to be a long haul for him if he tries to continue to play the way he's playing now.
Batum is a key, but I think, Coach, to your point, more in the immediate.
Oh, without a doubt.
I think Michael Carter-Williams being able, he recently assigned to the Greensboro Swarm for a rehab assignment. I think if he can come and play fairly well in a backup role to Kemba at that point guard position, I think that'll help stabilize and keep, to your point, Kemba a little bit more fresh heading into the second half of the season. I like what this basketball team is doing. Mike, to your point, that second unit, Frank Kaminsky's playing really good basketball right now. Which is really helping this basketball team.
The most improved player on that team from last year.
Absolutely. And to watch them continue. And let me say this. If this is the Dwight Howard we're going to consistently get 12 to 15 plus rebounds a night, I don't need you to score 20. If you're giving me 15 to 20 rebounds, blocking a shot or two, and deterring some other people, and finishing at the rim, whether it's the lobs and
10 every night,
I'll take it. He's playing really well, and that I think is really helping this Hornets basketball
maybe
team.
Michael, what's his name, Kid Gilchrist could get assigned to the G League. I got to prop Jeremy Lamb. I like Jeremy Lamb's had a great preseason so far. I went to college with his dad, Rolando Lamb, at VCU. Took some classes with him, and
16 a night.
We both remained eligible because of that. Some of those classes. I really like what Jeremy Lamb's doing for the Hornets. I'm not going to confirm or deny it was basket weaving. Kevin Tolbert, a lot better than those classes down at Bethune-Cookman. So. Before we get out of here, give me a final take. Reggie, start with you. It could be football, basketball, college, or pro. What do you got?
This weekend in college football.
By the way, before you start, a couple weeks ago when there was no good college games matched with two top 10 opponents, you called it. You said at least 4 upsets, and there happened to be 6. So you were on it. So I'll give you that.
And I'm going to say it again. I think this week they won't be so much. I mean, obviously there's always upsets in terms of favorites, Mikey. We've talked about that. But this Saturday, and then going into next week's college football rankings, those rankings are going to be all over the place different because there's a lot of big games this weekend, a lot of ranked versus ranked teams. So there's going to be some eliminations happening, and some teams are going to drop down in that top 25. Unfortunate to see South Florida was playing so well. They were undefeated. They finally lose a game. They're completely out of the top 25. Interesting, but look out, UCF's still in there at 7-0.
I think that the big thing for me is the next couple of weeks when it comes to the Panthers, because I could realistically see them, if they play bad football these next 3 to 4 weeks, that Greg Olsen might not come back. Because why come back and you're just coming off an injury on a team that's not going to make the playoffs?
Kind of like the Panthers held out Kuechly at the end of last year.
Yeah, so
but they played Cam.
They played Cam, yeah. But I really do think these next couple of weeks, and they're all divisional games too, and I think this is going to be make a break for the Panthers these next 2 or 3 weeks.
All right, Mike.
I'm a big fan of chaos in college football, so I'm really.
If you're a Mountaineer fan, I'm sure that's not all you're a fan of.
No, chaos rules. I want to see everything messed up. Beginning with the ACC. Let's see NC State come away with a win, just to mess everything up, just to make things crazy.
If it involves NC State, you can count on it being messed up.
Well, that works for me.
I love chaos too.
All right, well, I'm going to be at the NC State-Clemson game, unfortunately, but assignments are assignments, and you have to go where the money is coming from. And my final take is NASCAR. Chase Elliott, quit crying. Denny Hamlin got in your back bumper because you were right in front of him. Kyle Busch won. That's called team racing. And you look back at the old Bristol race in 1999. Ask Terry Labonte what happened when Dale Earnhardt Sr., the Intimidator, got him. That's called racing. And you got people booing Denny Hamlin. That's just the way it goes. It's Joe Gibbs racing. That's racing. And I'm looking forward to this week's race out of Texas, followed by Phoenix, and crowning a new champion, although I think all bets are off for Martin Truex. But until you get the final checkered flag, don't count out Joe Gibbs racing.
Let them know, Kev.
There you go.
I'm taking some shots at you all day, Reggie.
I know.
I ignore that. I disregard that. VCU don't have football.
For Reggie Walker, the coach David Davis, and Mike Freer, Kevin Tolbert from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill, I'm Kevin Casey. So long for now.
I'm about to eat.
Sports